What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Terror Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every platform we are available on. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. My co-host to my right, Scotty. And if you guys want to be interactive throughout tonight's show, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. That's where we can pull up your thoughts, comments, questions, and concerns. We will get to this in just a little bit. But no, I do not believe Jalen's going to play Saturday. He might not play for the next 2 weeks, but he will be back by week 18 or by the playoffs. We're going to get into that injury and a lot more, Scotty. But how was your weekend?
Oh, it was solid, man. Aside from the France loss, it was pretty amazing, I guess you could say. Even with the France loss, it was pretty amazing. That game, the World Cup final, was amazing, and then obviously we had the Eagles W and then the Cowboys loss. So it's always that's a good calculation for a great weekend. So I can't complain, man. How was your weekend?
It was good. The last time we talked was Saturday morning, previewing those games, and obviously one of those games, or more than one of those games, but specifically the largest comeback in NFL history. We will obviously have to get to later on in the show. Miami versus Buffalo. We'll talk about that one as well. You got the Patriots Raiders ending yesterday. You got the Jaguars walking things off with a pick six against the Cowboys in overtime. Eagles escaped the Bears, Washington Giants last night. A whole lot of stuff to get into. Appreciate you. Keep on commenting. Keep on giving us your thoughts, comments, and questions here, Scotty. But let's start with this Eagles-Bears review. Eagles 25-20. They get to 13-1. Escape Justin Fields, escape Soldier Field in that brutal cold weather, but not perfectly, right? And not clean, as Jalen Hurts now has a right shoulder sprain. It is his throwing arm. Indeed, I know there's a lot of back and forth on social media. What shoulder is it? Is it not throwing shoulder? Is it throwing shoulder? No, it is his right throwing shoulder. So that makes things a little more difficult to rehab and get things back from. You can't just throw him out there this Saturday on a short week in Dallas. And I guess I want to preface my statement by this. It was a win. The Eagles won the game. That was the ultimate goal. They improved to 13-1. They are now one win away in the final 3 weeks of securing the number one seed in the NFC. And there were a lot of positives. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, to watch Jalen Hurts bounce back mid-game after the worst start of his season, right? Like, normally I'm watching this game, I'm like, oh man, next week we're gonna have to see him bounce back against Dallas. No, he bounced back and improved throughout the game. Scott, he made a lot of nice throws, a lot of clutch throws, a lot of deep throws. So we'll talk about that. The defense, Hassan Reddick, this defensive front, game wreckers everywhere, Jonathan Gannon, a whole bunch of positives. But I just can't get away from the negative. And it's not a concern. This is not a concern moving forward with our Eagles. It's just a complaint I have, and it's holding this team accountable. Because while it was an ugly game, it was solely ugly because of the self-inflicted, mind-boggling decisions offensively. Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni are 110% responsible for what happened and why this game was so ugly. To just ignore the fact that the Chicago Bears are the 27th ranked defense against the run in the league. You have your first 1,000-yard rusher. He's already got 10 touchdowns on the year since Shady McCoy and Miles Sanders, and you just completely ignore him. You throw the running game out the window, and it's not just that they weren't throwing the ball, Scotty. It's not running the ball. It's how they were throwing the ball. Everything was a shot down the field, and they were just chasing a big play, and it stalled the offense for so long until Jalen finally got into a rhythm. And I'll throw this to you here. It's not actually Nick's fault or Shane's fault, because an injury can occur on any given play at any given second, especially when you have a physical runner like Jalen. But there's a reason I'm screaming at the top of my lungs to my television to stop putting your quarterback, nonetheless your MVP leader quarterback, in situations where he continues to take hits. Make that make sense to me. And finally, It paid off. You almost got what you deserve. Not Jalen Hurts, but Nick Sirianni. Why, oh, why did we continue to
Yeah.
put the ball in his hands, whether it's a design or an RPO? Don't give him the choice to keep it and run with it. Line up under center behind that best offensive line in football and run the ball to your 1,000-yard rusher. Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen were a disaster yesterday.
Yeah, no, I have no disagreement there. Obviously, we talked about that during the game. No, you're fine, man. You're fine. The play calling itself, yeah, it was a question mark again, and it felt like we were revisiting Indianapolis again, and kind of just going totally away from the obvious game plan that you would go into a game like that with. And I told you, I think it's a lot of overthinking with Sirianni. We see it from time to time where he just overthinks everything. It's like he looks at and I guess there's two different ways I think of Sirianni thinking in order to devise a game plan like this for the Eagles, right? One, it's because you want to go out there and you want to prove that Jalen Hurts is the MVP. You want to put all of his talent on display out there in that showcase. If that's the case, it's dumb, right? That's no way to use your quarterback, use your MVP candidate. So I do see it from that perspective. I see it from the perspective of trying to, let them air it out in this game, get Devontae Smith closer to 1,000 yards, make this pass offense look more effective in that sense. Why would you want to do that? Once again, just to prove Jalen Hurts' worth. And I just don't understand why Sirianni gets into that type of stuff sometimes. Like, yeah, it's great when you're going against the Tennessee Titans and you want to get A.J. Brown the ball in the end zone. That's fine. I have no problem with stuff like that. But it's when you start having like these narratives control our game script. And we can't do that. We can't listen to the outside and say, we have to go out here and prove it. Was it him stepping on the field against Justin Fields? Do you feel you have to run Jalen Hurts like Justin Fields runs in order to prove that he's the better mobile quarterback? Like, I didn't understand the thought process a week after Miles Sanders just torched the Giants last week, right? He made it look easy. And so then this week, we totally go away from Miles in the entire first half. We go completely away from Miles Sanders. It's straight deep shots, like you said, and Dan Orlovsky pointed this out as well. It's like you can go out there and just keep on like dying for the big play every game, right? But you're going to lose to good teams when you play like that, and they're not falling, right? It just wasn't going our way that day. After 2 Jalen Hurts interceptions, recognize the big plays aren't falling our way right now. And mind you, they went back to it later in the game. They got it to A.J. Brown down the field, so on and so forth. But if it's not there, don't make us like just go up against a brick wall and run our head into it, over and over again. Just run the football, get back to the basics. And it's something that we talked about almost, it feels like before every single game, man. And maybe it's because we didn't do Eagles pregame yesterday because of the World Cup final, that they didn't get the memo, because running the football sets up the pass game. It's very easy. It's very easy to understand.
Yeah, it's their identity. It's what they do well. And I think the biggest problem, the most frustrating part about yesterday's game, like, Scotty, it became unbearable to watch. I was like, there were points throughout this game I wanted to turn it off. I was saying, I didn't care personally if they scored 2 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter and they ended the game 31-13. I did not care if they won by 18 points because of what they were trying to do. And then again, you get the end result today with Jalen's injury, and that's just a product of you putting him in those situations. Yeah. And I think that the biggest issue I have is you brought up who they have these lapses against. They're not having these lapses against the Tennessee Titans. They didn't have the lapse against the Dallas Cowboys first time around, against the Minnesota Vikings, against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. No. They had these offensive woes, these mind-juggling decisions, game plans, schemes against the lesser talented teams, and that's poor leadership. Now, again, I'm just complaining, right? They're 13-1. They won the game. Clearly, the leadership is fine. I'm just taking a specific moment and say, recognize who you're playing. Recognize, if I know they're the 27th ranked defense against the run, if I know that that's your strength behind the best offensive line in football, maybe just a thought, you might want to do it. And then here's what bothered me like crazy. The sideline reporter comes out after talking to Nick Sirianni and tells everyone that Nick Sirianni said he is unhappy with how with the balance on offense and how they need to run the ball more. Listen, I know he gave up play calling duties to Shane Steichen. Nick Sirianni, from my point of view, still has 90% control over the offense.
What's Shane going to tell him no?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is Shane going to tell the head coach no?
You decide that. It's on you. Like, and no offense, miss me with Shane Steichen, because guess what? Why did Nick Sirianni have to give up play calling duties to Shane Steichen last year, Scotty? Because he wasn't running the football and they were losing games. And again, it wasn't just the fact that they weren't running. It was, or not throwing. It wasn't the fact that they were putting Jalen in these bad situations to take unnecessary hits. It's what you were trying to do through the air, as you mentioned. Yeah. Jalen connected on 2 or 3 of them late in the game, and they were beautiful balls, but just so many unnecessary plays early on in the game, which is why it was 6-3 with 30 seconds left in the first half.
It's
so
just
self-inflicted.
After it's like when you just go through 1, 2, 3, 4 drives where they just come out and just do 3 pass plays to start the drive. Like it just boggles me. Like it boggles my mind. Like I don't understand how you can be so good at running the football. You can have so much pride in your offensive line and their physicality and what they're able to do on that field. Yet you go away from it time and time again. After you see Jalen Hurts get rocked the first time, how about we stop the QB runs? Like for real, we're playing the Chicago Bears. Like I get it. Every game matters, and you don't want to go out there and lose against Chicago before you go against Dallas. I get it. You want to get that W.
Right. It was set up to be a trap game.
It's the Chicago Bears, man. Like at the end of the day, if we lose our quarterback for the rest of the season, was it worth it to get that W in Chicago in 20-degree weather? You know what I mean? So I don't understand it. And then you even take it this far, take it to this level, Dylan. Jalen Hurts, and I do want to ask you about this, how you feel about Jalen Hurts in the cold weather, if you think that'll have any effect down the line. I do want to ask you that. But if Jalen Hurts' hands are numb, why the hell are we throwing the football? How about we make sure he can feel his hands? I don't understand, man. Like that's not an excuse for 2 interceptions. Like, yeah, it's an excuse for Jalen Hurts, I guess, because he can't feel the ball when he's trying to throw it downfield. But if you're talking between it, you're talking to your head coach. You're like, Coach, my hands are numb. I'm cold as shit. Like, Scotty, let's go with the run. Let's let the running back hold it.
We're going to talk about this game later on in the show. But honestly, like after we get the news today about Jalen's shoulder strain, what if Dallas doesn't lose? If Dallas doesn't have a deflected pick 6 in overtime, which was an early Christmas present, and I can't wait to discuss it. But if that doesn't happen, this game means something. And now, like you said, that's the most aggravating part. It's never a good idea to put him in situations to get hit. And I know that's the style they play, and he runs every week. But it was just so if Jalen ran the ball,
it was like excessive.
Yeah,
it was excessive,
ran
like the
ball
Devontae
12
Smith
times,
screens.
But Miles ran it 16. He still ran almost, but whatever, bro. He ran 16 or 17 times, and Miles got the ball 1 time in the first half, 2 times in the first half. And then you see like they had a drive starting on their own 10, first down run, 5 yards, second down run, 6 yards. Oh my God! Look what happened. Magic. And he never went back to it. The last part that pissed me off about this whole pass thing, someone texted me and was like, well, Jalen keeps holding on to the ball and pulling it and running with it. Hey, guess what? Not every run play has to be a read option, Nick. Stop giving him, because that's read and react, right? You're putting him on the spot to read that defensive end, to read that linebacker and make that split-second decision. Stop doing that. Hey, here's a thought. How about we lined up under center and get Miles Sanders going north-south instead of everything going east-west slower in these slow starting situations, and maybe you'll have better results. Maybe, and then here's the best part. Miles Sanders fumbles. Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should have just handed it off to him instead of throwing a little screen pass behind the line of scrimmage to him Scotty, the best part was if he catches that, it's still a 6-yard loss. because he was
Yeah.
wrapped up immediately. Like, so many mind-boggling things. Jalen Hurts is injured. It's not the overall victory Monday feeling we've had over the last couple of weeks, but nonetheless, they still won the game. They're 13-1, and there are a bunch of positives to get into. So let's
Absolutely.
transition into that. By the
I
way,
mean,
Chris,
I did just.
oh, my bad. No,
I wanted
my
to.
bad.
No, I
They
wanted
do
to
not
say
have
one
home
more.
field advantage yet. They have to win one more of their final 3 to lock up the 1 seed. Appreciate it. But what's going on, Scotty?
Would you say going into the playoffs, coaching adjustments, is
Yeah.
that the biggest concern for the Eagles?
Um,
Is that the biggest concern? Like, we've had
Of
special
all the
team issues. We've
concerns,
had
yeah, of all the concerns, I would say yes. But again, taking this negative and turning it into a positive, I have no evidence of the coaches and the game plans biting them in big situations against good teams. This is all there's
Yeah.
only been, and not to mention, this is like the
That's fair.
second lapse of the season for Nick Sirianni. So I know I sound like I'm crushing him, but that's because I'm holding him and them to a high standard at the moment. And so, no, I'm not really worried about him because I think they'll be fine against a Minnesota, against a San Fran, against
That's
a
a good
Cowboys team. But it is interesting. You did bring up the point about the cold and Jalen's hands, and I know where you were going with that because obviously here in Philadelphia, in January, temperatures can get a little interesting.
Yeah.
Even at the coldest Philly could possibly be.
It's not Chicago.
I don't think you're getting what that was. There's so many beat reporters were talking about how like this was a different type of cold, not to mention the wind, right? It's the wind. He said, you're not getting that here in Philly.
Yeah.
Not that you don't get any wind, but you don't get that.
You're right by that big body of water,
Yeah.
right? So you're getting all that cold air coming off of there too. So yeah, I'm with you. That was my thought exactly. I just wondered if you put anything into that, if you think that's going to affect
I won't.
them down the
And like I
stretch.
said, let's get into those positives. So one positive, speaking of Jalen Hurts' hands, was the fact that I witnessed this kid come out and have such a disastrous start. Whether you want to blame the play calling, whether you want to blame the Quez Watkins route, he didn't flatten out, and Jalen expected him to flatten out the route against the zone, whatever. Still 2 bad decisions, 2 bad picks. The first one was the worst, was even worse than the Jacksonville one earlier on in the year. But to watch him progress throughout the game and adjust and make those improvements was beautiful. It wasn't a week-to-week thing. It wasn't a game-to-game thing. It was the game within the game. And ultimately, even though Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen kept forcing the ball down his throat, he ultimately ended up making a bunch of game-saving plays for them, not only with his legs with the touchdown at the end of the first half, but with his arm. Scotty, that deep ball to A.J. Brown, you know which one I'm talking about. Down the sideline, A.J. gets tackled at the 2. That ball was perfect. It's not as flashy as a deep ball. The game-ending pass on the slant to A.J. Brown on 3rd down to put Chicago away was perfect. The one throw, before he makes the terrible interception, if Patrick Mahomes makes the throw, it's flashed on SportsCenter for the next 24 hours. Rolling to his left, crossbody, throws a dart 25 yards down the field on the boundary to Devontae Smith. He made so many game-changing and game-saving plays and throws yesterday, and then he took care of the football down the stretch. And seeing Jalen Hurts bounce back after an ugly start mid-game was a total and utter positive for me, because I know if he comes out in a playoff game, different situation, not the Chicago Bears, but if he comes out in a playoff game and throws an early interception, he can bounce back. It does not make or break his day and his decision-making.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a positive coming out of this one. Just Jalen Hurts' poise, the poise of the team. The defense was able to stand up, right? Justin Fields out there doing some crazy stuff in the run game. That dude's a freak athlete. I will say that. The defense, that's my big positive coming away from this. It's more specifically the defensive line. Once again, just continues to keep knocking on that door, elevating play, and taking their game to another level. Each and every week, it seems like we do have a trend of guys who are going out here and doing this, right? But I mean, I'm actually interested because I didn't look at this before hopping on here, but Hargrave has to have double-digit sacks right now.
Hit him and
BG's knocking on the door.
BG's
Sweat's got to
8.5.
have double-digit.
Hassan's done. He's at 12.5. I believe Hargrave's over.
So we're
Sweat
gonna
is
have
either
4
there or
guys.
Sweat's at 9. So they're this close to 4, and they would be the first time they would be the first team in NFL history to have 4 guys with double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
But according to
See, and
certain
that's
analysts, we need more sacks.
you can't get more than the league leader, right? That's my biggest positive from yesterday, being able to somewhat contain that Justin Fields offense, right? He obviously broke off for maybe 2 or 3 magical runs,
Yeah.
escaping Hassan Reddick, who did have pressure, he just couldn't bring him down. I love the push that they were getting yesterday. And I love how the defense just stepped up to the plate. Obviously, the offense was putting us in some bad situations, and they were able to hold it down for the most part. Jalen Hurts, the poise that you spoke of with him, I do absolutely love that. Exactly what you said. I wanted to see how he was going to bounce back, because that start was eerily similar to that game in Dallas last season, I should say, when we're on the road in Dallas, right? He comes out, throws a pick 6, I believe it was the first one. And he kind of just looked like a deer in headlights out there, right? Now, obviously, Chicago's not as big a stage as going against Dallas, but this is the second or third time we've seen him kind of bounce back,
The
whether
Jacksonville
it's him
game,
making
he
the
did the same
mistakes.
thing.
Exactly. Whether it's him making the mistakes or somebody else making the mistakes, he's bouncing back for that offense, and he's staying poised. And it's great to see that before you get into the playoffs, before you get into these important games. Once again, just hope he's good, man. Hope he's staying healthy. We get Dallas Goedert back this weekend, hopefully.
Huge.
He should come off IR, and we're getting healthier, but it's just mind-boggling, man. I can't help but go back to the usage and kind of how we got here with Jalen Hurts being questionable right now.
It's like a dark cloud hanging over the celebration, right?
13th win, right?
And
I want to get to 14.
But it was just annoying to watch. It really was. But speaking of positives, you brought up the defensive front. Josh Sweat was great. Javon Hargrave was great. They sacked Justin Fields 6 times, Scotty. Yep. You spoke of the magical runs, and there's a reason for that, because the kid is quick and shifty and strong as hell, right? Teams don't bring him down 6 times. This defensive front did, and most specifically, number 7 did. That man was everywhere, Scotty, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's chasing down a running back, whether it's causing a fumble and then recovering it on the boundary. He did it all yesterday. He was an absolute game wrecker. He's on pace for a career year with 3 to go. He should be in the defensive player of the year conversation. He was special yesterday. Speaking of special, another guy we acquired this offseason, AJ Brown. My God, over 180 yards yesterday. Him and Hurts connection showed yesterday. The trust showed yesterday. And the fact that when you look back on that 2004 Terrell Owens season, I know we were a little younger at the time, but I still remember it. And how special that was. And we always say that's the gold standard, right? The last couple of years with limited options at the wide receiver room, we've always said we haven't had a wide receiver since T.O., right? AJ Brown, with 3 weeks to spare, has already had more yards than Terrell Owens in his first season as a Philadelphia Eagle. And that year was special. Okay. Yeah. So he has been everything. Smitty is over the 900-yard mark with 3 to go. It's looking like 2 1,000-yard receivers, 1,000-yard rusher, all the guys with 10-plus touchdowns. This offense is so high-flying that it's even when they're punching themselves in their own face, they're still producing.
Yeah, it was beautiful to see both receivers kind of go off like that. But on the other side of that conversation, it'll be nice to get Goddard back and have another option mixed in there as well. But no, I'm with you as far as getting both of those guys up over 100 yards, and now you have Smitty 99 yards away from the 1,000-yard mark. So it's exciting, man. This is unprecedented when you talk about offense for Philadelphia, right? We've always had we had a good defense and a good offense, right? When we won the Super Bowl and all those trips, we've never had the best offense, right? Like, we have the best offense in the NFL. When you talk about weapons, you talk about every level of offense that you can participate in, running the football, passing the football, offensive line. This is the best offense that I may have seen in my Eagles fandom life, right?
Like, and the defense is up there.
Could be.
Defense is up there.
the defense is up there. I was actually pulling up the numbers as you were talking about the sacks yesterday, because you're right. 6 sacks. Reddick had 2, Hargrave had 2, and Josh Sweat had 2 yesterday. So you have Reddick and Hargrave. Reddick has 12 sacks. Hargrave has 10. Josh Sweat 9.5. Brandon Graham 8.5, and then Fletcher at 6. It's insane, man. God forbid Fletcher have some crazy ending to the season too and get 4 sacks in the last 3 games. You never know.
Yeah, right.
But it's amazing how he's been able to do. I saw the graphic up. I think it was Thomas on Twitter put up the graphic of all the main additions this offseason: AJ Brown, CGJ, James Bradbury, and Hassan Reddick, and just looking at their production. Who do you think was the best addition, right? I think I lean AJ Brown, obviously, just the way he changed the offense.
You have to.
Tough.
But my God, what do you want? You want the interception leader that hasn't played for multiple weeks? Do you want CB2, who people don't even want to throw at? Do you want 12.5 sack Hassan Reddick, who just changed the game yesterday? Or do you want the 1,200 receiving guy with double-digit touchdowns, right? So Howie put on a masterclass this offseason. It showed yesterday. And I do see your comment here, John, and we're going to break this game down later on in the week. I have no idea. I had to process. The news broke, an hour ago? I have to figure out what's going to happen, what I can predict for Saturday, what game plan they roll into, what they're on Saturday. But
if we go off of Chris Sims' analyzation,
we
should be fine. We should win this game.
By the way, quick update for you, for your Myrtle Beach Bowl, everybody. UConn was driving 3rd and goal. Marshall picked them off in the end zone with 5 minutes to go, Scotty. So we're holding on for dear life right now. That was good for us. And yeah, Chris, I know half of our team is in free agency next year, but a good amount of them will be back. Obviously, it's going to be a tough situation to bring back all of the likes of CGJ, Bradbury. Yeah. When you look at those two specifically, Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, Isaac Sayamalu, but and Howie, I guess we have to trust, but.
I saw a Commanders fan put a list of our free, and why is nobody talking? Because we're in the middle of a 13-1 season. That's why nobody's talking about it. You're gonna enjoy what you're in,
and not to mention, I saw your comments back and forth, and I just didn't engage with that person because, like I said, we probably can't have a serious conversation. Not only are we in the midst of an all-time great season, and we're focused on winning a Super Bowl this year, all those guys aren't going to be gone. Sure, some of them will. Some of them will be back, and other guys will come in and who we don't know of yet. People are funny though, Scotty. But with that being said, anything else, Eagles? We spent almost a half hour on this game. A lot of with complaining, but also a lot of positives. And I would like to say this: although I ripped Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni, obviously, I don't have the longevity, or they don't have the longevity of a resume like Jeff Stoutland does, or the confidence that I have in Jeff Stoutland. But it's eerily similar to when I see the offensive line have a bad game. We're what do we say? That's not happening next week. I feel the same way about the game plan and about this team. Now, maybe with Minshew, I got to take a step back here. But if Jalen Hurts was playing this week, I would have no real concern about the game plan and Nick Sirianni heading into Christmas Eve.
I mean, I would imagine we're not going to see too many QB runs with
No, I would probably argue no design QB runs next week, man. But okay, let's get into the other game that was taking place at 1:00 on Sunday, and the game that probably affected us the most as Eagles fans. That was the Dallas Cowboys in Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. They fall to the Jags 40-34 in overtime on a walk-off pick six off the fingertips of Noah Brown from Dak Prescott. It gives the Eagles a 3-game lead over Dallas. It made Christmas Eve. Jalen Hurts or no Jalen Hurts irrelevant at this point, as the Eagles only need to win one to wrap up the division and the 1 seed in the final 3. And it's just funny. What else can you? It's the Cowboys cowboying. It's Dak turning the ball over. And listen, I know Dak's a great leader, and this loss wasn't on Dak. But what started it all, Scotty? Up 17, your own 15-yard line, 3rd down. Dak throws that timely pick Or maybe it's the guy that decided to go on a podcast, a highly viewed podcast that would be talked about on all the major national media outlets. And instead of focusing on his upcoming opponent, after they just struggled to the 1-win Houston Texans last week, he's talking about our team and our quarterback. And that's what you get. That's what this Cowboys team gets. That's what Dak Prescott gets. That's what Micah Parsons gets. And I just love it. You know why I love it, Scotty? Because this defense isn't as good as everyone says it was, as everyone thinks it is. I had this conversation with you. I want to say after they beat Chicago or Detroit, but they had given up a shit ton of rushing yards, or they lost to Green Bay, excuse me, and they had barely squeaked by Chicago and Detroit, right? And I said, yeah, they won the games, but they had to score 47 to do so. They had to score 35 to do so, right? This defense is not as good as you think it is. This pass rush, this big, bad, scary pass rush led by your defensive player of the year, Micah Parsons. Yeah, they've had 1 sack on Sunday, and I think they've had 2 sacks over the last 2 weeks.
No, one sack over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is the Texans game was one thing. It was back and forth. You started slow, Dak turned the ball over, whatever. This game was supposed to be the recipe, the design for Dallas Cowboys success, right? They were up. This defense can feast. This pass rush can get after the quarterback and let them bring you home. You were up 27-10. So I ask you, Scotty, what the hell happened in Jacksonville?
It's funny, man. It's just what you said at first, and it's just that the Cowboys are always going to cowboy. Like you couldn't have written a better script coming into this week. And I the reason I didn't pick the Jags to win this game is ultimately because it felt like it made too much sense for the Jags to beat the Cowboys and basically blow their season up. As far as getting home field advantage, winning the division, I shouldn't say they clinched a playoff spot yesterday. So it didn't do that. But nonetheless, playing spoiler, taking all of the control out of Dallas's hands, right? Yep. Everything's in Philly's hands now. We would have to lose the last 3 in order for Dallas to win the division. So just thinking of it, Doug Peterson coming in, right? You had the blunder against Houston the week before, and everybody's questioning Dak and his decision-making. Part of me felt like they would come out, correct it, and they would go out there and blow out the Jags. I thought they were well on their way when they were up those 17 points. But then, as you mentioned, the Cowboys are going to cowboy. It's like Dak is going to Dak, but Romo did the same stuff when he played. Like it's so odd. Like the end of game interceptions
to kill games. Scotty? Do you know why they didn't respond that way and come out and do what they were supposed to? Because that's something that great teams do. And what are they not? A great team. So that's the simplified version I can give you.
They're always going to cowboy, man. Dak is going to Dak, and it's so funny, this Dak stuff, because you look at his last 4 games, and I believe it's actually 4 out of the last 6 games he's had 2 picks. Last 4 games he's had at least 1 pick. In 3 of the 4 games he's had 2 picks. So 2+ picks in 3 of the last 4. The decision making is just not there. I mean, you look at it even at the end of the game before it goes to overtime and you have the pick. You're going down the field. You're up 3. You're up 3. And it's 3rd and 10, and you're taking a bomb shot, like a bomb down the field.
Talk about it.
What the hell are we doing?
That was incredible.
Dak,
oh, my God.
Mike McCarthy, I don't care. Kellen Moore, it doesn't matter. You threw a bomb on 3rd and 10. You're up 3.
That was incredible. Hold on. And so much goes into it. Like, it's not just on Dak's shoulders. It's on Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy. No. But you said it. There was 1:20 left in the 4th quarter. You have a lead. Trevor Lawrence just fumbled the game away to you.
I thought the game was over, man. I looked at it. I was like,
they had
they're not
one more
win.
Timeout. So you have 2 options. Which is the decision that I make, run the football, and you make Jacksonville eat that last timeout. If you don't pick up the 4th down, or the 3rd down, excuse me, you punt on 4th. They got no timeouts, which obviously that timeout came into play for them to kick the tying field goal. Or you drop Dak back, and as Dan Orlovsky said, you eat it. If nothing's there to dump off, you take a sack, and they still have to use their timeout, and then you punt. No. What do? 3rd and long, bomb down the sideline, not even to your number
So
1 or 2
stupid.
receiver. You threw a bomb to Noah Brown, bro. I
Noah
know he
Brown.
scored in this game. You threw a bomb to your 3rd best target with the boundary on his left and a corner on his hip to stop the clock and allow them to keep a timeout, and you cowboyed. That's the simplest
cowboyed it up.
thing I can
Cowboyed
say.
it
It came early this year. Normally it happens
look,
in a month.
We talked about this. We talked about their tendencies when they ran up the score against Indianapolis, right? They ran up the score, got all the way up north of 50 points in that game, and they just kept throwing the ball. They had to get Zeke. They had to get Gallup in the end zone, right?
Yeah.
This plays right into it, man.
Oh,
just going out there and throwing the game away, man. That's the other end of the stick, right? When you don't know when to start focusing on controlling the game clock, time of possession. That's an error. That's a mess up on all ends. But it's not just the fourth quarter decision making. Like you said, it's the third quarter interception.
It started with that interception.
Right?
That is when the comeback started. The game was well within
crazy,
hand.
man.
And
it's crazy, but it's
life.
not crazy. It's not crazy, right? We should have known. Like I did know. I just didn't believe myself almost. Like it's weird how they just fall in line.
And it just makes it better when you had all the talk throughout this week. Focus on taking care of your own backyard first. Focus on your shit first.
What have we been hearing since that showdown, whenever that was, when we played Dallas back in Philly earlier this year? What have we been hearing this whole time? Wait until December 24th. Wait until December.
And what did I keep saying?
Make sure that game matters.
Exactly. You guys might want to get there first. It better mean something when we get there. And guess what? Now it don't. And you guys would be sitting kind of pretty at this moment with the Jalen Hurts injury news if you just took care of your own shit and weren't worried about what the Eagles were doing and what Jalen Hurts was doing.
You look at it, that situation, that's a win-win. So either we play Gardner Minshew or we play an injured Jalen Hurts and we can injure him more, right? So that's a win-win if they win that game against the Jags. Yes, but they did. And that's over. And the Cowboys.
And now the Jags themselves. It's funny, we're Eagles fans, so obviously all the attention goes on the Cowboys' loss. But a lot should be talked about Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and this Jacksonville Jaguars team, because quite frankly, they're on the outside looking in, but there's still a chance they can make a run at this division, because Tennessee just lost again on a walk-off field goal by Dicker the kicker and Justin Herbert. So they're right in position for that. I know that's a segment we'll have later on that we'll bring the Jags back into, but that's something to keep an eye on as well, Scotty. I'm going to stick in the division. I'm going to go right to Sunday Night Football last night, man, and I want to get your thoughts. I don't know. I believe – did you stay out for this one? Did you stay out for the whole game?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
And so obviously if you guys missed the ending of the Giants-Commanders game last night, very controversial. 2 of the final 3 plays actually were very controversial. And as just as an observer, while it's funny and ironic that it's the same team that ripped Dallas Goedert's head off his body and there was no flag when a ref was standing right there, and they got bailed out by a roughing the passer call when their quarterback crawled up in the fetal position and took a late hit to end the game, all those missed calls. But I will say also, as someone who had a Brian Robinson anytime touchdown scorer last night, Scotty, the officiating is a problem. And that's really how this game ended. They were losing by 8, that being the Commanders, 20-12 with a minute left. 3rd and goal at the 1. Brian Robinson scores. Flag comes out. Terry McLaurin called for illegal formation, which was total BS when you watch the video with him checking with the referee. Am I good? No, move up. He moves up. Am I good? Yeah, you're good. And then the refs, that was worse than the non-PI call, in my opinion. That's a procedural, very technical penalty. The receiver checked with you. You told him he was good to line up where he was located, and you put your hand on your hip just waiting for the ball to be snapped, for that to come out, right? You call that, you take them back. 3rd and goal, they don't get it. 4th and goal, utter and clear pass interference. The entire route, the entire time, they don't call it. Washington loses. And if I'm being honest, I'm only discussing this because it allowed the lesser of the two teams to get the full advantage to make the playoffs. The Giants are going to make the playoffs now. The Commanders are out, and I think the Commanders pose bigger issues than this beat up, brittle New York Giants team does. Now I get it. The Giants were up by 8 anyway. It's not why the Commanders lost. The Commanders only scored 12 points out of their bye week. Heineke fumbled the possession prior, right? There's a lot to go into this game, but it definitely, to say it didn't play a factor would be stupid and just taking away from the conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I look at this game. I'll be honest with you. Right before the game, I did lay New York Giants money line, just because I just had this weird feeling that both of these teams are just so mid that the one that I think is better is just going to lose this game because they're just so mid and unpredictable. I went with the Giants in this game with real no evidence or support behind going with them, and it paid off for me. But nonetheless, I look at these teams and it was about to be tied again, and I was looking at it, I was like, man, these teams are just really equal. Maybe they are the same level of team, right? But no, the end of that game, you're spot on. While if that happened to the Eagles, I would be disgusted, right? I would be heated. But I almost feel like it's karma for the Commanders, man. So many people. The thing is, we didn't even get like a headline the next day on Get Up or
it wasn't discussed
on First Take, right? They were discussing this about Terry McLaurin and the line judge and the missed pass interference. We had a face mask that took our tight end, put him on IR, and he fumbled, and it lost us the game.
And game
that was not talked about at all.
Our game as well was ended with a walk-off penalty.
Walk-off penalty, right? So I have no feelings of remorse for the Commanders fans. I really don't care. What was I told?
Show some remorse.
Missed calls happen. Missed calls happen. I'm with you. I had the Brian Robinson tutty as well. I wanted it. Don't get me wrong, because the payout would have been better than the money line. Honestly, it would have been better if I got the touchdown.
And then to hear the rules analyst Gene Steratore after the game say that he would have thrown PI and he wouldn't have called the illegal formation was just so anti my bet, because if they call the first one after he scores, they call it back. Okay. If you throw the PI, it's 1st and goal from the 1 with 45 seconds left. He probably gets the ball at the 1 again. So I'm just like, man, they didn't want my man to get in the end zone, huh?
It's crazy because that can kind of open your eyes to all of these conspiracy theories about NFL rigging stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that takes the game out of your hands. No matter what Terry McLaurin did on that play, he was getting called, right? Illegal formation. Like, he was getting called for that no matter what. Because like you said, he checked with the ref and he told him he was good. The only other thing I'll say about this game, I agree with you. I think the Giants have a stronghold. I think they have the best chance to make the playoffs in this case. And interesting game coming up against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see how they can match up with them. That's a good test for the Giants, right? Daniel Jones came out, looked poised in this one, man. I'm interested in your thoughts on Daniel Jones, and like, if you're the Giants, what do you do there? Like, I'm not sure I would give him like this long, fat contract or anything like that. It's very weird,
right? Because they're not in a position.
What's your better option?
Yeah, they're not in a position draft-wise. They're not bad. They're actually the 6th seed in the NFC. That was the point of winning last night and getting to 8-5-1, right? So they're not in a position to have a high draft pick to acquire one of the high sought.
And would you want to do that with Saquon? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, do you want to start over again?
Yeah, I know. But if not, it's all interesting. To me, they're in a little bit similar. Obviously, Daniel Jones, the high draft pick, Taylor Heineke, not. But I feel like we've seen this movie before, and he is playing well. He made a couple really nice throws last night, and he controlled the game. He didn't really turn the ball over, right? He hasn't been turning the ball over, I mean. But like, it almost feels like they need to solve that problem. Like with Washington, we know they have weapons and a good defense and the coaching system, but we know we've seen Heineke fall short before, just like in San Fran, like before Jimmy's injury. We've seen this movie before. That's why they moved on to Trey Lance, because he got them as far as they could get them. What's running it back with Daniel Jones do? I don't know, but what is the alternative to your point? Because I don't know if you have a better option next year.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You bring in you can bring in a better option, but then you're starting over. Yeah. And is it a better option, right? Yeah. When you talk about dual threat for Daniel Jones, he's actually pretty mobile. And then the other thing, Saquon, man, he's healthy, right? He's a monster, man. I'm telling you, if there is like a prototypical type of like stature of a running back that I would want, it would be Saquon Barkley. That dude is a fucking tank.
He's a beast.
He's a
We made
beast,
so
man,
many
but
dudes miss last night. It was incredible.
yeah, so big too, making people miss. It's wild.
We do have a couple more things to get into here today, Scotty. And one, this is kind of one real gloss over topic.
Yeah.
But it's actually a big deal when you look at the playoff landscape. We witnessed a lot this weekend. We witnessed the Cowboys. We witnessed the Chiefs get taken to overtime by the Texans. We witnessed the Cowboys walk off pick 6. We witnessed maybe the greatest World Cup final in the history of the game, right? I'm not a soccer guy, but that was extremely exciting, right?
Yeah. It's great.
We also witnessed the dumbest, most
glad you're going
moronic, crazy, ridiculous finish to a football game you will ever see. And I don't even know how to put into words what happened in that New England Patriots Las Vegas Raiders game. I really don't know what to say. The only thing nice you can say about it without calling them some of the dumbest people alive is that Jacoby Myers was a true professional afterwards. Yeah, you felt bad for him, honestly.
Yeah.
Like at first you're like, what is this idiot doing? And then you're like, damn, he handled that pretty well, right? He took on full responsibility. Ramondre Stevenson, they asked him about it. He's the one that initiated the first toss to Jacoby Myers, and he said it was just a designed run play. It's on him. So they both took responsibility. But my man, Scotty, what is going on? The game's tied. It's tied. You're not losing. The game is tied. You go to overtime. The game was a run play, get down, or they should have just nailed it instead of running. But they run the play. Stevenson breaks through a hole. Zeros hit the clock. Laterals one back to Jacoby Myers, and he just throws a dime right to Chandler Jones. And then Mac Jones gets straight up mugged on the way to the end zone.
If Mac Jones catches it, what's happening then?
Yeah, nothing.
You scoring a touchdown now? Like, what happens if Mac Jones even does? Like, if the ball magically gets to Mac Jones, then what?
Nothing. There was literally no positive.
I don't understand
from that situation. There was nothing that was going to happen. You were not scoring on that play, and your worst nightmare came true. That the fact that it went right to a defensive lineman or a linebacker, and it gets taken for 6.
And it's funny because it happened to the Raiders, and that's like such like a thing that I would expect the Raiders to do. Like you don't expect the Patriots to do that, right? A Bill Belichick coach.
Now their playoff shots and dreams are basically shot.
Yeah, I was looking at the playoff picture. I mean, you got a bunch of 2 teams 7-7, then you have 4, 6, and 8 teams, but you got 2 8 and 6 teams in the wild card right now that you would need them to drop 2 more games for you to get back into it. So they've kind of shot themselves in the foot, right? That's a game that you look at for New England. Keep your playoff hopes alive. You have to win that game because I think I'm pretty sure their schedule gets tougher after that.
Oh, it does.
They play Cincinnati next week. Yeah. They play Cincinnati next week.
They're done, dude. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, they're done.
Their playoff hopes are done. An overachieving team, we can say none the least. But that lack of talent really did come back to bite them offensively.
It showed.
Well coached defensively, maybe, but not offensively with all the struggles we've been seeing. Again, we witnessed a lot of things this weekend, Scotty. We also witnessed the largest comeback in NFL history. Vikings on Saturday to kick off the weekend action. 33 down at home to Jeff Saturday and the Colts. Of course, it had to be Matt Ryan. Why wouldn't it be Matt Ryan at this point with everything going on?
How ironic.
And the Minnesota Vikings come back to win in overtime 39-36. Obviously, you cannot take all the credit away from the team that came back to win the game. But my God, this just screams Jeff Saturday and Matt Ryan. Like that's all it does to like this. I don't really know what to say. Like if I'm looking at the Vikings as a potential contender in the NFC, I I know we struggle with the Colts. Why were you down 33-0 at home to the Colts?
Yeah, 33-0. Like, that's weird.
Right.
No Jonathan
but then, like,
Taylor.
but now they're on the right side of history. They're in the history books now, but like it's not even impressive. I guess I can say like it is. It's definitely impressive.
It is.
But like,
but why are you down 33 in the first
Matt Ryan snapping the ball with 22 seconds left on the play clock in the fourth quarter? Like, I don't know.
Funny because I knew it was gonna happen. Like I knew it was gonna happen.
When the fourth quarter hit and Minnesota was only down 15, it felt like that energy was entering that building at that point.
The Colts literally just did nothing on offense the rest of the game. Like after 33 points, they did nothing on offense after that. It was wild to watch.
And it just Jeff Saturday, man. I really don't know what else to say.
On a Saturday, too.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor goes down for the year. Now, obviously, their season's over anyway, but now he's out for the season. So just so many things that went wrong. I'm not even sure how to break down the game. Minnesota, congratulations. It was historic. It was exciting as hell to watch as a football fan. Why you were ever down 33-0 at home to that horrible team. How Jeff Saturday and Matt Ryan allowed them to lose 39-36. And by the way, we want to talk about officiating. If we're being honest, the game should have never went to overtime because Minnesota and Chandon Sullivan specifically had not only one, but two fumble recoveries returned for touchdowns that these inept officials blew dead. It's really bad to watch. It makes the games unenjoyable. We saw it against Washington with the Eagles. You see it all the time. We complain about umpires. We complain about NBA officials. NFL officials find ways to actually affect the outcomes of games in a big-time way. And to see it transpire like 5 times over the course of a weekend. And we're not even talking about roughing the passer calls, which tend to be a problem in this league as well.
You know, it's crazy where the NFL is with, reviewing stuff and fixing calls. Like even the NBA has a better system than the NFL when it comes to those type of things, reviewing things. Look at the FIFA World Cup put everything.
You can review everything
as far as the NFL and their system.
Now
it's like degenerative compared to the FIFA World Cup system of
can I ask
VAR.
You one thing, though? You bring that up, and I do I love that about the World Cup, watching that, how you can review like everything. But the one thing I didn't like is that there was a tackle in the box down one end, and it wasn't called. They played on down the other end, and then I hear the announcer say, "Well, they might take a look at this." And that part, I was like, "Whoa." The play can go all the way down the other end of the field, and then they can look at. I didn't understand that. Like, why is that a thing? Like, why would you not just blow the play dead?
I think after that, they went back and said they can't because the ball had already been advanced. Okay. So when the ball advances, you're not allowed to go back and look at it. Usually they have like a little pause period where the ref like gets control of things and goes over and checks it. But the other thing that I like about FIFA, and I don't know if you caught this, but I saw an article that came out today, and I noticed it throughout the tournament. They hold the refs accountable. So like when there is a missed call or a missed foul, a missed penalty, whatever the case may be, you'll see it headlining the next day for the World Cup saying they missed this. We got to make sure that doesn't happen going forward. And then today I even saw they had a top like 8 or 9 or top 10 list of the biggest misses in the World Cup, things that should have went one way, but they went the other. And they hold themselves accountable on top of it. So like that's all I want from the refs of the NFL. I don't want players to get fined when they say this guy.
I want harsher.
Refs to get fined for missing the calls.
I agree with you. We want them held accountable, and we would love acknowledgement of it, right? But sending out a tweet telling me that they missed the call. Well, no shit, bud. Not gonna work. I know they missed the call. If AJ Brown can be fined $45,000 for spanking the goalposts with his towel. Well, guess what? That line judge that told Terry McLaurin he was okay and then threw the flag immediately should be fined or demoted. You should not call another primetime game for the rest of the season. That's the problem, Scotty. That's why they can get away with so much, and that's why they can be poor at their jobs. I understand how difficult it is at that level, at that pace, at that speed, to see things. Obviously, when there's a fumble, but they call them down and we freak out. How do you know? I know at times it has to be difficult, but you cannot affect the outcomes of games
I agree.
In such a high level. And you just get to do, he's just going to like you might go on to call the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
That's what think about that.
I'm sure.
Go back years. Go back the Eagles Super Bowl year, I believe it was. Or no, the year after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Go back to that Saints who was in that round? Was it Saints 49ers? Yeah, Saints 49ers. With that pass interference call that wasn't called.
It was the Rams.
Oh, so yeah.
Rams.
Yeah.
Saints and Rams.
Just wasn't called.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That was crazy. I mean, yeah, it's egregious, right? Like it. And the funny thing is,
nothing happened to
the
that
NFL will put that ref. They'll put that ref that was talking to Terry McLaurin. They'll put him in the Commanders playoff game. Like that's what the NFL does as a response. Like they'll put it in your face again. Like it's embarrassing. It's crazy, man. It is crazy.
It's like making me watch Tony Brothers over and over and over again.
Yeah, refs taking control of the show is never what you want to see, especially.
And then just speaking about about Philadelphia and not holding people accountable, my fellow crazy ass fan base, Bills Mafia. Why wasn't that a headline today, Scotty? We threw snowballs at Santa 82 years ago, and it still gets talked about. They're throwing snowballs.
It's funny,
and
right?
Peter Schrager's coming on TV saying that. There's it's like icy, like there's ice in them.
Yeah.
They're pelting players. They're pelting camera crew with them. Like I saw the one dude get hit in the back of the neck. Oh, it's funny, right? And I know with social media, it's I'm not saying it was like a bad thing to do. Like, do I think it was like assault? But remember, like when not that the person should have done it, but like remember when the dude dumped popcorn on Russell Westbrook when he was walking down the town? People were like, "That's assault." He dumped popcorn on a dude. They're throwing ice balls at players' necks, and it's funny. But we threw snowballs at Santa in 1912, and it still gets brought up.
The refs had to notify the stadium, like if you continue to throw snowballs, the home team will be penalized. That's crazy.
Like, I'm glad they notified it because it did kind of stop. But to hear him say on TV, "Please stop throwing snowballs on the field." I was like, bro, what? Like,
I thought it was like, it's funny, but it's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it was funny because like I would see like somebody.
Did you see the one play in the end zone?
And then they just get pelted.
Did you see the one play in the end zone when it was an incompletion? It was like the second drive of the game. The ball's in the air in the end zone, and in come 18 snowballs in the middle of this play. Dude, no, I'm like, it's funny. But that affects the game. Like, imagine you're going up to toe tap and you get hit in the back with a snowball. Like, I don't know if that affects, but like,
I think it would, man. It definitely does, and it's definitely a bad thing. But it is funny, and it's also funny that like you said, it's kind of hypocritical the way people are acting about it. It's funny that the Bills do it. It's a big the
one part that was funny though. I don't know if you saw in the first row of the stands. A couple different groups of people had like mountains of snowballs prepared in front of them. Like they were just waiting, right? And they announced like, do not throw any more snowballs or Buffalo will be assessed a 15-yard penalty. And they panned to like two dudes with like 18 snowballs and beers next to them. And they're just like, what the fuck? And I'm like, bro, that's why you're standing in the freezing cold to throw snowballs.
My thing is, what if it's a Dolphins fan out there throwing the snowballs? You know what I mean? Like, they'll get a 15-yard. Like, let me just go ahead and machine these things out. But I guess you get thrown out of the game too if they catch
That's true.
You. So,
all right, that was a little side conversation, a little fun. Last thing to really talk about, the last game that had true playoff implications on it, Scotty. The Detroit Lions win 6 in a row, taking down the New York Jets 20-17. The Jets' playoff hopes when the Jets were 7-3 or 7-2, it felt like not too long ago.
They were 6-3,
6-3,
1-4 less.
They're falling apart. Zach Wilson came back, played better. Honestly, had a pick, but he looked better in the pocket and had some explosive plays with those young wide receivers. But ultimately, Jared Goff on 4th and inches finds a streaking open tight end for the game-winning touchdown. Thank you. Got me to my fantasy championship. But the Lions now looking great as the 7 seed, potentially a possible 6 seed in the NFC with 3 to play, while the Jets' playoff hopes dwindle down in the AFC. Are the Lions going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they are, honestly. And this is kind of a good segue to what I told you I wanted to talk about earlier. Just who do we feel deserves to make the playoffs? Who do we think will make the playoffs? Not necessarily who do we think, but who do we think would make the most of a playoff appearance, right? If they made it. And I think the Lions are one of those teams in the NFC. Like, if you ask me, do I think the Lions are better than Seattle, Washington, or New York? Yeah, I absolutely do. I think they would be a better challenge if they made the playoffs over Seattle, Washington, or the New York Giants. And I think if they made it the 7th seed, they would play the Vikings that they just beat.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an interesting thought. And the thing about Detroit is that they've gotten better defensively. That's already been talked about. But that offense is a juggernaut. Like, it's not just a good offense. It's one of the best offenses that has also added pieces back. You do have DeAndre Swift. He's actually getting utilized in a more, primary role, right? We've seen Jamal Williams scaled back in that game against the Jets. You talk about Jamison Williams. He's back. He's healthy. He's in the lineup with Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, right? Who's the one other receiver they have? He's kind of Josh Reynolds, I believe his name is Reynolds. He's a big body receiver, right? They just keep finding more and more pieces. This is a young, fightful team, right? They're very fierce and aggressive. I like the way they play, man. And it starts with Dan Campbell. I know we gave him a lot of shit to start the season.
I'm glad you bring that up.
A lot of people were riding his coattail coming into the season, saying they were going to be one of these teams that we're seeing right now. And he's brought that into fruition. That wasn't just smoke, right? All that hard knocks talk.
I would like to come
off
on here, and I know he'll never see it, but I ripped him early on in the year, and coaches were getting fired, and I asked a simple question. And I'm not saying I don't think I was wrong to ask the question, because they weren't producing, but apparently they just needed some time. I apologize. I was wrong. Dan, you talk about how they're aggressive and they're fierce and they're playing hard. They are finally taking on the personality of the head coach. So the head coach had all this personality, and he wants to bite your ear off, and he's a big guy, and he's a deep talker, and he's loud, right? And it just didn't feel like they played like that. They were flashy on offense, but they played no defense. That whole thing has changed. They run the ball hard. They're starting to beat you up on defense a little bit. Then they'll hit you with a big 40-yard touchdown. Jamison Williams comes back, as you said. It's a big addition for them with a rookie. Yeah. I apologize. I was wrong. I was wrong to question Jalen Hurts. I was wrong to question Dan Campbell. See how easy that is to do? I know Cowboys fans aren't watching this because they watch bad product all the time every Sunday. But it's not hard to do. I was wrong.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Detroit, they're a fun team, I would say. To
answer your question of basically not who do we want to see in the playoffs, but who do we not who do we think it's in, but who do we think deserves it? Who would bring the most competition as an underdog? I truly believe it to be the Detroit Lions. Seattle has some potential with those. Well, now Lockett's out for the year, so throw that out the window. Yeah. Seattle's done, right? You look at the Giants, who right now are sitting in that 6th seed in that position. With all those injuries, we just saw firsthand what the Eagles did to them. The Vikings beat them. We saw Dallas beat them twice. The Giants don't scare me. And then outside of that, you have Washington, who just lost to the Giants, which is a problem, obviously. So I do believe it to be the Detroit Lions, and I ultimately think they will win the 7th seed. Scotty, I won't be surprised if they get up to the 6th seed and outdo the New York Giants at this point.
Yeah, because you look at Washington, they play San Francisco next week. So there's, loss number 7 for them. I'm with you. I think the Detroit Lions over those 3 teams specifically definitely deserve. And I would even say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can take them on out of there as well.
Hell yeah.
They don't deserve to make the playoffs, but they will nonetheless.
Joke. I never thought I would witness what I'm seeing. And I heard someone say it on ESPN earlier, and it's a great point. When you watch greatness for so long, that being Tom Brady, I think it was Ryan Clark, he said, any fall off from the greatness seems like catastrophe, seems like so much fall off. But Scotty, what I watched yesterday was that. That was him. That wasn't missed assignments. That wasn't offensive line. That wasn't defense. He had a 17-point lead at home. And the first 3 possessions of the second half, he himself turned the football. Well, the first was a punt after he went 3 and out. But then the next 2 possessions, he himself turned the ball over on his side of the field to give Joe Burrow short fields. And he did it again with a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter with his final interception. He did that. Mike Evans didn't run the wrong route. Rashad White didn't fumble. The offensive line didn't miss a block for him to get strip sacked. He himself, the greatest I've ever seen do it, was a catastrophe in the second half at home against the Bengals. And again, just when you think they're going to turn it around, they don't. That first half, you and I were texting like, okay, man, like maybe they're starting to put something together. They showed up today. They were running the football in the first half. How about that? No, they fell apart. And can I be honest with you? I'm not sure they win the AFC South. I know we keep waiting for it to switch. I know we keep waiting for that light at the end of the tunnel where they figure something out. Scotty, I'm not sold. I'm really not sold that the New Orleans Saints can't do it. And I know they're still a game behind. I know we want that high draft pick that's Eagles fans. I don't know. I really don't, because the Buccaneers continue to do nothing but prove themselves to be frauds.
Yeah, I feel you. That's exactly what they are. And maybe even take it a step further. Maybe it's time for Tom Brady to call it quits, right? Like at some point we have to be real with ourselves about what we're watching and about what we're watching him do. And the last 2 weeks kind of speak for themselves. You went out there against San Fran and you got embarrassed, right? You're not even on the same playing field as that team. And that's with Brock Purdy, right? An inexperienced quarterback. So you look at that, you come out, play like complete dog shit against the San Francisco 49ers. And then yesterday you come out and have like this mirage, right? It's basically like Cincinnati was asleep for a half. And I'll be honest, when I saw Tampa Bay go up 10-0, I went and laid it on the Cincinnati money line because I just knew. I had a feeling, man. Now, obviously, I got a little bit more scared when they went up 17-0 because I was like, oh, maybe they are turning the corner. But nonetheless, they came crashing down as hard as you possibly can, right? Like as hard as you possibly can, to the point where it wasn't even a game the other way. By the end of the game, right? It wasn't even a game for the Cincinnati Bengals. By the midway through the fourth quarter, they had taken control back with a two possession lead against the Tampa Bay Bucks. They are who they are, right? We've seen it. Yesterday, the defense played better. They played Jamar Chase better, right? Still lost. Joe Burrow was still able to go out there and get the W. And I'll go on the other side of that, obviously talking a lot about Tampa Bay, but the Cincinnati Bengals, once again, the defense shows up once again, holds it down for the Bengals. Bengals offense comes in, they run the football, they get the ball to their stars. They're moving the ball even without their starting tight end and Hayden Hurst. I'll go out on a limb. I don't even know if it's a limb. They're the best team in the AFC right now, and that goes for the Chiefs, the Bills, all of them, man, because of that defense. That's the difference right now. We've seen the Chiefs. I have to move them down my power rankings. I get it. They haven't lost in the last 2 weeks, but you've gone to overtime with the who did they? I'm forgetting now. Texans, and then the week before it's the Denver Broncos, right? Yeah. Blowing a lead to Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos that can't score over 20 points.
I'll tell you what was crazy about that. Obviously watching the Eagles at that point, so I'm not on Red Zone and seeing much of the Chiefs game at first, and it's going to overtime, and I had them in a teaser, and they were 13.5-point favorites or 14.5-point favorites, so teasing down, and I'm like, wow, this really isn't going to hit. Like, what's going on today? Is Patty turning the ball over? Dude, Mahomes was 36 of 41. He was damn near. He didn't turn the ball. He was perfect. So explain to me how the MVP in some people's eyes is perfect, and you're playing a one-win team, and you escape in overtime.
Yeah,
I really don't know what happened down in Houston the other day or yesterday. Excuse me.
Maybe Houston's getting better, but still, you know what I mean? Like maybe they are getting better. They played the Cowboys stuff, so on and so forth, but not a good look the last couple weeks, or the last 2 weeks. I'll specify the last 2 weeks for the Kansas City Chiefs has not been a good look. And Buffalo, they've been kind of up and down. They took care of business against Dolphins at home, but I just like where the Bengals are at. But nonetheless, we got to get past this week. But then the following week, we're going to get Bengals versus Bills, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. And that maybe that has a deciding factor in who really is my favorite to come out of the AFC going into the playoffs.
That game will be huge in terms
interesting.
of that. With them already beating the Chiefs, Buffalo beat the Chiefs already this season.
Right.
You know how I feel about Kansas City and Mahomes and Big Red, but when you talk about the defense being a difference maker, you also have to look offensively. I know we view Mahomes as the best in the league, so Burrow obviously isn't better than Mahomes in our eyes, but they have more talent offensively. I know they have the best tight end in the league in Kansas City, but when you look at Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon, and you can throw Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst in there, they have more weapons. Burrow's 3-0 in the last 3 against Mahomes, and that defense is finally awoken. Yeah, man, I can see it. So that game in 2 weeks is going to be interesting to see what kind of level both sides are on, gearing up for the postseason, right? So, anything else? I know hour and 11 coming up here. So anything else we got in terms of this weekend? Oh, tonight, Jesus, we have
just tonight. That's it. That's all I got for you. We hit everything, man. There was a lot of action this weekend. I think we hit everything so far. We just got one more game to go tonight.
Yes, sir. So obviously it is the LA Rams led by Baker Mayfield heading to Lambeau as 7.5-point underdogs take on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Not really going to get into this one. 2 non-playoff teams with their seasons just dwindling away at this moment. But any game, Scotty, is a good game to profit on. So let's take a look at our best bets for this Week 15 Monday Night Football appearance. We're going with 3 tonight, right? So we're limiting down. It's not a great game. So we don't want to go overboard with it, especially with the Sixers on. But our best bets for tonight, I am looking first and foremost to Baker's favorite target from last week, Ben Skoranek. There's a lot of different props I'm looking at for him here. I am taking him at 25 plus yards at -155. I know you might not like the lack of juice there, but his over-under started at 28.5. It has moved up to 32.5 because of the play it's getting from people. He had, and if you like his receptions, over 2.5 as well. He had set 8 targets, 7 catches for like 70 or 80 yards in his first game with Baker. He's playing, they're using him in those quick hitting slot routes that Baker likes to throw. Ben Skoranek, 25 plus yards at -155. Looking at Green Bay side of things, Aaron Jones over 3.5 receptions at +135. Rodgers get the ball out of his hands quickly a little bit tonight. Obviously that Rams defense, that Rams team is very beat up, but Aaron Jones is a pretty good pass catching back for Aaron Rodgers and this Packers team. So his over receptions. And then of course, Christian Watson, anytime tutty. The kid has really turned it on the second half of the season. He's been pretty reliable for Rodgers. And they can pick apart that soft cover 4 that the Rams like to run a lot. So looking for those 3 bets tonight. Can we get a profitable night tonight, Scotty?
Let's do it. We need all of them to hit. Let's get it.
Yes,
we got
sir,
Sixers too, so we got some hittable opportunities tonight. But let's start with this Monday Night Football game nonetheless. And
let's get to it.
I like all the plays. Honestly. In a pretty crappy game like this, it's nice to have a little bit of betting involved in it, just to make it somewhat interesting. I'm with you. I don't feel any need to get into the game. I guess I'd ask you 2 questions, quick answers, really. Yeah. Is there any faith in like a Baker Mayfield revamp in the LA system? Maybe he comes back next year. And then on the other side, is there anything specific that you're looking for from Green Bay? Like what should Green Bay fans look at for their team for the rest of this season that kind of is over in the stance of competing?
So obviously Baker comes out and has that ridiculous finish against the Raiders last week and brings all these eyeballs to the offense, and maybe he can rejuvenate himself. I don't think so. It's cool. It's fun. I was actually a Baker supporter when everyone was down on him last year. And when the Browns decided to move on from him, I thought it was a very weird and bad thing for them to do, but he's not played well outside of last week. Obviously, I don't think he has a future in LA, obviously with Stafford coming back. Maybe, I know you're probably talking about as a backup role and Stafford's getting older, but I don't really see it. I think he'll probably hit the market. Green Bay fans, obviously you're at home, so you're looking at Lambeau Field tonight. You have no playoff hopes, right? Rodgers probably could be his last season, but you're not. you're not getting Jordan Love tonight unless something goes wrong. So
Right.
you're not getting a look at your future, right?
Right.
You're playing a bad opponent, so it's not even like you're the home underdog and you have something to root for. You're 7.5-point favorites. I don't know what they can really look forward to heading into the offseason. They had Green Bay as an organization has some decision making to do in terms of that quarterback room and then going forward, man. So if I was Green Bay, I'd probably stay out of the cold weather and watch from the warmth of my own home tonight. And not pay the money to go see that. I know if it was in Philly and the Eagles were in Green Bay situation, I would say you guys can have fun with those tickets, and I'm going to watch them here tonight.
Yeah, we can let the people that never been to the game before go on that night for the low. I'm good on that. Yeah, I'm with you. That's why I asked, because I don't know if you're a Green Bay fan. I just don't know what you get out of playing Aaron Rodgers at this point. Like it defeats the purpose of moving
unless
forward,
he's supposed to be here next year, right? Unless they're not moving
exactly. On. And I don't see that, right? Like I really don't see it, but maybe we're out of the loop there. Maybe we'll come back to Green Bay and do this over again, right?
Yeah, I agree, man. So that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of Terror Talk here on DSM Media. Guys, don't forget to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button, the link tree in our bio. Take you to every platform we're on: YouTube, Facebook, IG, TikTok, Twitch. We're on everything. So don't forget to check us out on YouTube specifically. We're at 690. We're 10 away from 700 subs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's free. Obviously, there's content shows almost every day of the week. It's where you can find our exclusive Philadelphia pregame shows, whether it's Eagles, Sixers, Phillies. We're running into the Sixers game tonight, so probably out of the loop there, but we will get our best bets out for the night, and we'll be back later on in the week. For myself, for Scotty, and for our friends over at Gents Barber Lounge and Luxon and Jewelers, have a great rest of your Monday night.
Go Birds.
One-on-one.